Hello friends, I am Arpit and I am here with today's analysis. Today is 11th of May and we are going to deal with three very important topics which are in news. First is the biocontrol agent to tackle foot rot disease in the basmati rice. What is a foot rot disease? Foot rot disease is a fungal disease which impacts the rice in its first stage of sowing, which is paddy is cultivated in the nursery first and then from there it goes to the fields, and this inhibits the growth and ultimately destroys the seed of the rice crop. A biocontrol agent is kind of a natural agent which is acting like a pesticide, and most of the times this biocontrol agent, which is a pesticide, is more effective than chemical pesticides. Now the biocontrol agent which has been invented for tackling this particular disease, that is the foot rot disease, which is a fungal disease, is also a fungus. So this is what is happening, and this has been developed by the scientists in Punjab Agricultural University in Punjab. Next is agriculture imports and exports. Now in the last fiscal, the agriculture imports as well as exports have dipped from India. Some agricultural exports, last year the agricultural exports were somewhere around $53 billion. This year they have dipped down to $48 billion. This dip is basically because of low productivity in the country, and the low productivity has to cater to the domestic demands and the excess stock we used to export. But last year productivity was low, climate vagaries were there, or I would say there were some supply side constraints which were there, due to which the government had to impose export bans. Now the agricultural producers and exporters are demanding more stability from the government's point of view, whereas on the other hand the government is also saying that how can we allow export if we are not able to fulfill our domestic demands. We first have to prioritize that, and after that we can go for exporting. Then the new Chinese ambassador to India. So China has appointed a new ambassador, Mr. Zhu Feihong, as an ambassador to India after 18 months of vacant position of the ambassador. In 2022, the last serving ambassador of China retired, and after that there was no ambassador. There was this vacuum here in India. Although ambassador is the highest position, but no positions below the ambassador, they were serving over here. The embassy of China was running. The main reason which is understood behind this is the tensions between India and China, which started in 2020 in the Galwan Valley region and continued thereafter. However, it was not explicitly mentioned by China that this is the reason that we have not stated or we have not appointed an ambassador to India. Nothing it was, but it is understood in this way. So let us start with the topics and let us see what are the topics in detail. So biocontrol agent to tackle foot rot disease. This foot rot disease is in basmati rice. So Punjab Agricultural University, Ludhiana has developed this biocontrol agent to tackle this disease. The name of this agent is Trichoderma asperellum 2% WP. This is in itself a fungus based biocontrol agent, and it is registered with Central Insecticide Boards and Registration Committee, CIBRC. It will help Punjab farmers to manage the deadly foot rot or Bakane disease that plagues the crops of basmati rice, varieties of fragrant rice that are popular world over. Now first let us understand that what is a biocontrol agent. These agents are natural enemies of pests. Natural enemies of pests means they are pesticides. And pesticides can be synthetic, or I would say chemical for pesticides, and natural means these kind of pesticides are involving certain natural elements like microorganisms and such like. So this biocontrol agent is this natural pesticide and can help prevent crop damage by interfering with the life cycle of insect pests. They are less toxic and more flexible than chemical pesticides. Examples: parasites, predators, disease causing fungi, bacteria, viruses, spiders, flies, all can be used as biocontrol agents to control the attack of pests on the agricultural crops. Means these are friendly, crop friendly. This will enable the crop growth. And that is why, the scientists in Punjab Agricultural University has developed this biocontrol agent known as Trichoderma aspergillum, which is a fungus which is used to fight this disease called as the foot rot disease. One amazing fact about foot rot disease is that this disease is also caused by a fungus. So fungus killing fungus, as the kahavat goes, lohe ko loha kaatta hai. So it is like this. Now, first, to understand this particular disease, we should first understand that how rice is cultivated. Rice is cultivated in two stages. Seeds are first sown in nursery bed, where they sprout and grow into seedlings, which are then transplanted into a well puddled and prepared field. Foot rot is a fungal disease that affects basmati rice crops, particularly at the seedling stage, means when they are in the first stage in the nursery. It might also cause infection after transplantation. Let's suppose we don't come to know about this disease in the first stage and we transplant that seedling into the field, but the disease is actually there. So we can also see those diseases getting spread in the fields also, in those rice varieties which are planted in the fields. But that actually started from the first stage. With our negligence, it was transferred over there in the field. It is caused by the fungus Fusarium verticilloides, a soil seed-borne pathogen which spreads the infection through the root of the plant. Infected seedlings first turn pale yellow, then elongate and dry up, and eventually, most usually, they die. This is what or how this disease is spread and how it impacts. Now, preventive measures against this particular disease. Early seedling treatment. Try and use disease-free seeds and destroy infected seeds. This can be done. Timely seed nursery management in the first stage when that seed is sprouting. At that time, we can manage it and monitor it very well. Now, it is said that seed sowing in the first fortnight of June is recommended, and transplantation in July. Means you sow the seeds in June, in 1 month it will sprout up. In July, transplant it in the field. Sowing in May often leads to problems as the month's high temperatures are favorable to this disease, that is foot rot disease. So don't hurry for sowing it in May. You can sow it in June and transplant it in July. Fields where the nursery is being set up must also be well drained with proper irrigation to avoid the spread of foot rot. So it should be drained, the nurseries. Currently, seedlings are treated with Trichoderma harzianum before sowing and transplantation. Now, seeds are also treated with fungicides such as Sprint 75 WS. This is carbendazim plus mancozeb, and all these are chemical pesticides. Carbendazim is banned in Punjab. Because it is toxic, it can spread the toxicity to the people who are consuming this kind of rice. These are also called as cancer causing agents also, these are. So, this is why this carbendazim is banned. And this is the new invention which the scientists in PAU, Punjab Agricultural University, have done, is a natural pesticide, no harm of that. So, and it is not also harmful for the soil. So, that is why it is a novel invention, a good one. Next piece of news again related to agriculture, and this time it is agriculture import and export. When we got independence, around 90% of our population was involved in agricultural sector. But unfortunately, we were not sufficient enough in food. We were Krishi Pradhan, but we were not Atmanirbhar in food. We had to depend upon agricultural aid or food imports. 1960s, Green Revolution came. We started producing more, reducing our dependency. By the 21st century, we started exporting our agricultural products. 2022-23 was the year where we achieved records of agricultural exports, that is 53 point something billion dollars of agri exports were there in 2022-23. Now in 2023-24, the data is released and the agricultural exports have dipped to 48 point something billion dollars from 53 point something billion dollars. This is basically a cause of concern. The agricultural imports have also dipped. That is not a cause of concern, that is something which is a good news, but agricultural exports getting dipped is something which is concerning, especially for the farmers. Now, India's agricultural exports, they fell by 8.2% in the fiscal year ended March 31, 2024. Shipment curbs on a host of commodities from cereals and sugars to onions, these were levied. What was the value of exports? It was $48.82 billion in 2023-24, down from $53.15 billion of 2022-23, and in the previous year, that is 2021-22, it was $50.24 billion. So 53 we went, that was the record, but now we've come down to 48.82. This is basically the growth chart which you can see, exports versus imports. So here in all these years since 2012-13, you can see that India is exporting more. The blue bars are for exports and the red bars are for imports, and we are importing less. And specifically in these COVID years and post that, you can see the agricultural imports as well as exports both have increased, means agricultural trade has increased. COVID happened, then Russia-Ukraine war happened, which led to scarcity of food products all across the world, and people looked towards India, and India did export. What happened this year? We will see what are the main drivers of falling agricultural exports for 2023-24, because these agricultural exports in 2023-24 fell from $53 billion, I am not taking into account those decimals, to $48 billion. Now, government hasn't allowed any sugar to go out. Basically, main drivers were drop in export of sugar and non-basmati rice. That is why we see this fall. Why the government didn't allow export of sugar to go out of the country? Because current production from October 2023 was low. Not surprisingly, exports of the sweetener were valued at only $2.82 billion in 2023-24, after peaking at $5.77 billion and $4.6 billion in the preceding fiscals. So, 2022-23, this much was the sugar exports. 2021-22, this much were the sugar exports, and 2023-24, it dropped to $2.82 billion from $5.77 billion, roughly half it became. Why? Because the government, levied export curbs. Why the government levied export curbs? Because there was less productivity of sugar in our country. Why? Because of climate vagaries. Next, concerns over domestic availability of food inflation have similarly triggered a ban on export of all white non-basmati rice. We are exporting basmati rice, but we levied export bans on non-basmati rice. These export bans were levied since July 2023. Only parboiled grain shipments are being permitted within the non-basmati segment. Rest basmati is allowed, while also attracting a 20% duty if someone tries to export this. This 20% duty is the export duty, which will increase the price of this. These restrictions have pulled down overall non-basmati exports from a record of $6.36 billion 22-23 to $4.57 billion in 2023-24. So this is 2022-23. So sugar exports have come down, non-basmati rice exports have come down because of low productivity over here. Other items of export, marine export are the highest export items, agri export items we export. Apart from it, castor oil and other cereals, mainly maize, have posted growth. Basmati rice exports $5.84 billion in 2023-24. It was earlier $4.86 billion. Spices exports crossed $4 billion mark for the first time. Exports of buffalo meat, oil meals, raw cotton, even while up, they were all above 2022-23. But those two commodities, sugar and non-basmati rice, they fell and they became the main drivers of falling agricultural exports from $53 billion to $48 billion, and the government had to do that because of less productivity. Now India's agri exports, just see the table. Marine exports top the list 2021-22, 22-23, 23-24. So it is the highest among the export items. So you can have a look at this and see that what items India is exporting. The list does not end here, it still is over here, and total is 50, 53, $48 billion. Reducing imports. The imports also fell down, which is something a good news. We are becoming Atmanirbhar in that. It can be perceived in this way. The 7.9% dip was there in the imports, agri imports in 2023-24, and it was largely due to edible oil reduction in edible oil imports, and we were wanting to become Atmanirbhar in this domain, so this is something which is a good news for us. India's import of vegetable fats topped $20 billion in 22-23. That was the year immediately after Russia-Ukraine war. Lower global prices in turn brought down the vegetable oil import bill to be below $15 billion during the last fiscal. So at one point of time, we were importing edible oil worth $20 billion. At that time, the global prices were also high. Now the global prices have eased. Now we are importing $15 billion worth edible oil. And cooking oil has reduced. Imports of pulses almost doubled to $3.7 billion. The edible oil imports reduced, but imports of pulses increased in 2023-24. So this is something which needs to be taken care of, and this is the list of India's agri imports. Vegetable oils still top the list despite going down $15 billion. It is $14.8 billion to be exact. Fresh fruits, pulses, spices, cashew, raw cotton, natural rubber, all these items, or these are the topmost import items we do in terms of agri imports. Now what should be the way forward? The farmers are saying that we are not allowed to export, our incomes will not be there and all. So in all this, what we can do is, we can simply say that the government should be more predictable in rolling out policies with respect to agricultural export and import. The policies will make the scenario more predictable for the farmers. They will know that they are allowed to export or not. Then if they are not, then they will find other ways of increasing their incomes. They will put their efforts in the domestic market. So in this way, by rollout of the policies beforehand, because all these decisions were taken ad hoc by the government, by roll of policies beforehand, there can be more predictability in this domain, and this is what the farmers are demanding, and that should be the ideal way forward. Now the next piece of news is the new Chinese ambassador to India. Why this is a piece of news to be discussed? Because there was no ambassador of China to India since the last 18 months. In 2022, Mr. Sun Wedong retired, completed his tenure, and that position was left vacant. Now this guy named as Zhu Feihong has been appointed as the ambassador to Delhi. He has served as ambassador to Afghanistan. He has also served as ambassador to other European countries. Now he is posted in India. Now why no ambassador to India? actually we need to understand one thing, that there was no official reason given by the Chinese government as such, but it was being assumed that our clashes in the Galwan Valley region, this is Galwan Valley region, these clashes happened in the year 2020 when India was building a road from Darbuk to Daulat Beg Oldi. Over here, this was the main bone of contention that led to clashes in 2020 between India and China. And after that, the relations between India and China went down a lot. Last year, the foreign minister of India was seen saying that the India-China relations are at an all-time low. So, maybe because of this, it is an assumption that China did not appoint any ambassador to India. But now, China has taken this step. What actually changed? The Prime Minister of India was silent on the China issue. But last month, in an interview to this US magazine, that is Newsweek, Mr. Modi broke his silence. He said that urgently address the prolonged situation on our borders so that abnormality in our bilateral interactions can be put behind us. This was said by the Indian Prime Minister, that in China and India should be doing this way. He also said that I hope and believe that through positive and constructive bilateral engagement at the diplomatic and military levels, we will be able to restore and sustain peace and tranquility in our borders. And after this statement given by the Indian Prime Minister, this was the response by the Chinese, and which is something which is a good news, because they have responded positively by taking this first step by appointing the ambassador to India, which is a clear signal from Beijing that they want to constructively take this relationship forward or ahead. And with the new government into place in India after June 2024, these, I would say, relations with China should be taken forward positively, because you cannot afford to have enemies in your neighborhood, and you cannot afford to change your neighbors also. So it is better to have better relations, and with a country like China, we can collectively shape the world order. It is what both the countries or both the leaders feel. Now the topics are over. We now come to the MCQs. Now, what are biocontrol agents? Option A, they are organic fertilizers, they are synthetic pesticides, they are natural pesticides, or none of the above. Among these four, you have to answer which is correct. What is the foot rot disease, often heard in news? It is a viral disease which impacts the paddy crop. It is a bacterial disease among the food crops. It is a protozoan disease in the paddy crops, or none of the above. Third is, consider the following and mark the correct statement. Agricultural exports from India increased in 2023-24. Agricultural imports to India reduced in 2023-24. Which among this statement is right? Be very careful in answering this. And the last question is, consider the following and mark the correct statement. Among the exporting agri commodities which India is exporting, marine products are the highest for 2023-24. Among the imports in India, pulses top the list of agri imports for 2023-24. So which among the following statements is correct? You have to answer this. And with this, we come to an end of today's session. I will be seeing you tomorrow now with more such informative news pieces. Till then, you guys very well know what to do. Keep studying, keep reading, keep writing, keep watching these videos, and most importantly, keep revising. Namaste. Jai Hind.